Hey friend, it's Dirk. In this training, let's talk about auto layout. Auto layout is the tool that all of us, all iOS developers must master in order to build apps for iPhone and iPad. Because you know that iPhone, it has multiple screen sizes. iPad has multiple screen sizes, and you don't want to build like one UI, one user interface for each of those screen sizes. That's okay to build, but it is terrible and it is painful to maintain and to update. So the tool is auto layout, allows us to build one UI that can work for all devices. Now the challenge is though, auto layout is really hard to get up and running, really hard to get the concept by itself, because people say that it is rather than an art rather than a science, because it has the learning curve to it. So in this training, I would love to share with you all you need to know about auto layout, and we will get you up and running that fast. So these are the three apps that we use auto layout on, and we will get and ready. So the first app is a recipe app that we'll build with beautiful UI. The second one is a motivational quote app, and the third one is a Twitter search app, or maybe I would change that into an Apple products app, but it was something like this with the Twitter search. And then along the way, I will give you some extra code challenges for you to practice with what you just learned, with what I just trained you on. So the first step is just click the link right below this page in the description. You find a link for you to download the starter project, because I already built the UI for these and some of the code, and we'll just have to focus on some auto layout code and the auto layout part of this training, so that we don't have to waste hours and hours on building these apps, right? We just focus on auto layout. So let's get started. Click the link right below this page and download these three apps. It's all for free for you, so just click there and you go to my website. It is something like this, and you just have to create a free account with us, so that enter your name and email here and click button so that I can send you these three apps. And let's get started. Click the link right below this page, download it, and let's get into the demo. First one you need to learn about is, what is auto layout? What exactly is it? People see it as a very complicated tool. Obviously, it is a very powerful tool, but personally, I just think of it as a tool that allows us to define a set of constraints to create relationship between two views in our UI. Now hold on. What does it mean, right? Auto layout allows us to create constraints that define relationships between two views. What does it mean? What is constraint? What is the relationship between two views? So to demo about this one, before we go into our app right here that I have for you right here, we'll go into this demo, building this app UI with auto layout all over again. But before we do that, I want to share with you this demo that I want to draw things for you so that you understand this one. So I have my iPad over here and I want to draw this UI with you. So let's say our app, very simple. We have this whole screen with one single view on the screen, right? Now the first thing you need to learn is the coordinate system of iOS. So here we go. This is the root of this is the origin of the coordinate system for iOS, 0, right? And this is, oh my god, it's drawing in front of a lot of people. This is the x-axis, and this is our y-axis, right? This is our y-axis and this is the x-axis. Now, what happens is, for this UI, it's very much looks like this. It is the 4.7 inch screen, right? It looks pretty good on this one, but if we run this guy on a 5.5 or even bigger, something like this. Remember, this is our UI, and I want to show you this tool. If you haven't downloaded this project yet, go to the link right down below this video. You will find a link to download this starter project, okay? And this thing right here, you can see that if I goes into the assistant editor, and then I will click into preview like this. and it allows me to add into different devices. Okay, I will delete this thing first so you can see it. So this is the 6S, the 4.7-inch screen, right? So if I click into this point, this one over here, and we show the 6S Plus, which is the 5.5-inch screen, it is too big. That's why the UI gets too small. There is spaces around here. This is the background view, that root view of the view controller, right? And even worse, if we choose the iPad Pro 12.9-inch screen, because do you see the problem? Like, it's too big, and this one is just like a fraction of the screen. So how can we fix this one? How can we fix this? Well, we use auto layout. And in order to use auto layout, we will tell auto layout some pieces of information that we call constraint. Okay, I hope that you can see this. Constraint. What it means is we'll add the distance from two views, the relationship between two views, and you see that every app has the root view, right? Every app has the root view. Oops. The root view right here. So this app has the root view. The root view always attaches to the top, the left, the right, and the bottom of the screen. So no matter how the screen big is, it's still, the root view is still as big as the screen, right? So we will use this root view right here. We use it as our anchor. We use it as our anchor. All right, makes sense? So now let's add some constraints into this root view, because we want to have, now in order to tell auto layout a view that is, we call it unambiguous, we need to tell auto layout, this is very important, we need to tell it 4 pieces of information. Number 1, the X position. Number 2, the Y position. Number 3, the width of the view. Number 4 is the height. Okay, X, Y, width, and height. That's it. If you add the constraint to satisfy these 4 pieces of information, everything will work. X, Y, width, and height. So for example, this thing right here, what is the X position? The X position is according to this coordinates, right? So I'm sorry, to X, that axis. So the X position, we want to have something like some point over here. Let's say this is 16 points from the left of this view to the left of the root view. So that is the X position. How about the Y? The Y is this coordinate right here, this axis right here, right? So the Y, we want to have like 64 points from the top of this view to the top of the root view. So that's the Y. Next up, how about the width? Now the width here, we can specify whatever, how many, the width right here, right? But if we specify, let's say this is like 200 points, the width of this guy. If we specify the exact width of this guy, then if the screen is bigger, then it will just as 200 points as big. But what we want to do is, as the screen changes, the width of the screen changes, we want also to scale the width of this view. So we'll attach, add another constraint, attach it, the right of this view to the right of the root view to be like 16 points. Okay, so because we have this thing over here and this thing over here, so the width always, this view always attaches to the left and the right of the root view. That's why the width, it also changes as we move along, as we change the size of the screen. That's why, the width. Now how about the height? The height, maybe you want to have the height here is, let's say 100 points, something like that, right? So we specify the height. Now, this thing is all very, very, very abstract. I try to draw things for you, but from this drawing, all I want you to see is to create unambiguous constraints. Constraint is again the distance between that thing. We specify the X, Y, width, and height, right? You need to specify 4 pieces of information for auto layout to work on every view. Number 1, you need the X position. Number 2, the Y position, and then the width, and finally the height. Alright, my friend, let's open up your starter project and get to it. In this demo, in this workshop, we're going to do together 5 different apps so that you get to know about auto layout and practice with auto layout. And then I will have also two other challenges for you so you can practice what you learned. So here we have the quote app and the recipes app. Is the quote app, I will show you how to do that. The recipe app is your code challenge, and then these two other apps, I will do it together. This app actually, I will do it together with you, and the other app you will practice on your own. And maybe I will give you some solutions in the complete project. So now let's go into your main storyboard. And if you recall from the little drawing, is auto layout is quite simple. All you have to do is you figure out what is the anchored view. Where's the anchored view? The view that is always changing when the window is changing. Because we have so many devices, that's why but the nice thing is iPhone or iPad, mostly it has only one window size for an app. So for example, this iPhone, I'm using the 7 Plus in the simulator. Then this windows here will be our anchored view, or the root view will be the anchor view. Now our job now is we have to put the constraints from these views into the constraint into these images or these text labels, so that these images and these text label, it will grow or it will shrink down along with the root view. So for example, let's say this inspire me button, right? This inspire me button. Right now, if I run this guy on an iPhone 7 like this, let me show you. Here we go. If I run this guy on iPhone 7, and you'll see that we don't see the button. We don't see button because this iPhone 7 is smaller, much smaller than the Plus, right? That's why the text is to the edge like this. It will cut off like that, and then the button, it will cut off like this. The button is way below here. We cannot see that. And now when you're testing auto layout, you don't have to always run on different size of simulator. Right inside iOS, you have a very cool tool for you to preview what your UI looks like in the storyboard. All you have to do is click this assistant editor, and then into the jumper like this, you can click into preview, and then in the preview you have this guy. So this guy is the 7 Plus. It looks good because we designed the device in 7 Plus. Now, if I click into the click button over here, the plus button, into the 7, it shrinks down, right? So our job is we have to make sure that it will work on both 7 or 7 Plus or even iPad sizes, right? So now, let's go over here. I'm going to open this size up because we may need that. So the first thing we'll do, let's say we'll do this button, and we want to add the constraints into this button. The first thing now remember that we have four pieces of information that we need to tell auto layout in order for it to understand how to position your view, right? We need to tell 4 pieces of information: the X position, the Y position, the width and the height. X, Y, width and height. X, Y, width and height. So what is the X position of this button? The X position, it is to the left like this. How much space is it to the left, right? So what we can do is I will hold the control key, and then drag from this button, drag it and release to the view. You see the view is highlighted, so drag it over there and release. And then you'll see that there is a leading space to container margin. Leading space to container margin. The leading space is like the beginning of your text, or in English is the left space. The reason why we call it the leading space is because in iOS it supports multi-language, and in a lot of languages, like I believe that is Arabian or Japanese, the right from the right to the left. And at that time, if the language is written from the right to the left, In contrast to like English, it is from the left to the right. Then the beginning of the text, which is the leading space, would be different, right? That's why it calls the leading space, so that it is the same in all languages. So now I click into the leading space, so that we will create a constraint from the left edge of this guy to the view. You see this? And you'll see that there's this little blue guidelines over here. It says that it says that what? Yeah, it says that you just have this guy pinned to the left of the view. Now I will do the same for the right because we need the exposition, right? The exposition, that is how much space to the left, like this. And then we need the Y position. Right? The Y position is the vertical space of the view. So how much space is it in the vertical, like this, right? Now we can do from the top of this button to the top of the container view, which is this view. But that will not do us any good, because if the screen size shrinks down, then the vertical space will be too much, right? So what we want to do is we want to have the vertical space from the bottom of this button down below to the bottom of the view. So that if the screen size shrinks down something like this from here, it shrinks down to here, then the auto layout still know that, okay, I still have to position this button, that much space, around like 20 points, from the bottom of the view, the button, to the bottom of the root view. So now what we'll do is I hold the control key, drag it from the button here, release it on the view, and release, and you'll see there will be a vertical spacing to the bottom layout, and I will click that. See that? Okay, so that is the Exposition and the Y position. Now let's talk about the width position. So the width here is this space, the space of the view, right, of the button. How much is it do you want to do? Do you want to have like a constant space, so a specific pixel number of the space? Well, we don't want that, because right now the screen is this big. What if the width shrinks down over here, like just like this, right? Then what the logic here is that we want to have the width of the button to be exactly the whole width of the view here, minus the padding to the left and right. So what we can do is we already have a constraint pinned to the left of the button, and then now we'll have another constraint to the right of the button. So I'll hold the control key, click it over here, and release, and then we'll have the trailing space to the container margin. Click there, and what it does is it makes your width of the button always shrinks down or grows up as the width of the screen grows or shrinks. You see that? So now if I preview this guy, let's preview this guy. Here we go. All right. You see the plus, it looks like that, and the 7, we still see the button. That's pretty cool, huh? Okay. Now the next thing we do is the height, because if you look at this, I don't know if you can see it, but in your project, if you follow along with me for all this time, you'll see that there is the blue lines on the left, right, and bottom of the button. That is good guideline. So it says that your auto layout constraint is all good. But if you zoom in, there will be a little blue-orange color. And actually, let me change the color of the button over here for you. Let me change the color, the background color, into this blue color. You see, I'm sorry, this is like greenish. So you see there's a little orange dashed line, right? This line, it says, okay, you tell me from the pieces of information that you tell me in auto layout, we have to position it something like that. But you only give me that much information, and I only know that you have to position the button in this dash orange or yellow line. So you see that it is still the width, the x and the y correctly like we said, but it is smaller in height. You see that? Because the height of the dash line here over here is smaller than what we wanted. It's because we didn't give auto layout the opportunity to set a height constraint, because we need x, y, width, and height. X, y, width, and height. So let's give it a height constraint here. I'm going to control and drag from the Inspire Me button to up above itself. And then you'll see there's a height like this. And then click it over there, and everything looks nice. It even looks nice on the 7. You see that? Okay, now let's move on into the label over here, the label. So this label, what do we want to do? This label over here, I'm going to, again, having the x, y, width, and height. Everything that you go through this, you just have to think, how can I set the constraint into x, y, width, and height? Now, as we move along here, I know that this is a little bit confusing right now because there's so many things that you have to put into consideration, and there's so many tools in auto layout that you have to deal with. Or you just new to this, maybe you're new to this, or you're like me before. I learned auto layout for so many times, read so many blog posts and even books, and still couldn't figure it out. But you just have to try. You just have to keep going on and learn and learn and learn. And at some point, when you maybe this way of explaining it, the way that I explain it to you, maybe it take. Maybe someone else's explanation will take for you. So just keep learning, just keep trying new things, and you'll see it. I hope that this way, a lot of people say that, okay, that way of explaining auto layout, just x, y, width, and height is perfectly understandable. So I hope that it makes sense for you. Let's move on and practice with other things so that you'll get better understanding, okay? So this label, how does we do it? The exposition. Again, the exposition, let's have exactly like the label, how much X space to the left. So I'm going to hold the control, drag from here to there. And then we have the leading space, right? The leading space. And then the Y position. The Y position is what? Yeah, either the vertical or the bottom space, right? But now in this case, because the text, it can has multiple lines, right? So what we want to do with this special text is we want the vertical space, the Y position, to be exactly in the center of the screen, to be in the center of the screen. So what you can do whenever you want to have something in the vertical space of any container is you hold Control key, drag from this label, drag to the left of that container view. So I release it like this, and you see that there's a little button over here. It says center vertically in container, and the container is the root view. So I click over here, and you see that this guy is still in the middle. This guy is still in the middle, right? Okay, good. Now, do you see this little dash, the orange filled line? This orange filled line says that, hey, you from your several constraints that you tell auto layout, I know that this dash, this line over here, this full line is what you want to have the view, the frame of the view to be like. But actually from your constraint, I have to render your view like this, just this line over here. And that's why you see it only one line like that. Right? So now we still need the width position and the width and the height. So the width, I still do the same like the Inspire Me. I want to have the right constraint over here, drag, control, and drag from the label to the view like this and release. And then we have the chilling space to container margin. like that. And now you see it looks beautiful like this. You see that? All right. So it will have a little space over here and it looks great on the 7. Now, here's a question. The question is, we just give this label 3 pieces of information. The X position, the Y position, the width and the height, right? I'm sorry, just the width. We still miss the height information, the height constraint. Why don't we have to do the height constraint for this label just like the way that we did for the button? Why? Now this piece of information I'm going to give you here, maybe you need to take note because it's so important and you need to remember that. And that is all views, almost all views in iOS, it has something called an intrinsic content size. An intrinsic content size. So what it is, the intrinsic content size is that a lot of views, it has some content inside it, right? So for example, the label, it has the text, and the content of the label is these text over here. And because these text, it takes up that much space. That's why intrinsically, or just like by itself, it has that much height and width. So intrinsically, it is that much big or small. Okay. Now let's do it. Let's talk about this image over here. This image over here, you see, it can be this big like that, right? Or it can be just small. But the intrinsic content size of this image is the original size of the image. So if I go into assets.c assets over here and have the thumb Steve Jobs over here, and if I let me have show in Finder like this, and then I will select this 3x, and then I will hold Command I, and you see that the dimension over here, the dimension is 240 by 240. So that 240 by 240 is the intrinsic content size of the image. But here, the size that we want to do in this guy, if you go into Attribute Inspector and then into the Size Inspector, this guy, this little ruler, you see the view, and then the width is only 80 and the height is 80. All right, it is smaller than the intrinsic content size. But this label, the reason why, so now you know what is the intrinsic content size, right? The intrinsic content size. Now, this label, the reason why we don't have to give it a height constraint is because we, is what? Because it has a intrinsic content height constraint, right? The content size has the height. And as the text grows much more, then the height, it will put into multiple lines, the height will increase. You see that? So now if I even copy this guy and paste it like this, it will grow like that. Okay, now let's do this image. So this image, the exposition, what is the exposition? The exposition here is a little bit different. If I do it just like the way that we did the Inspire Me button and the label, if I hold Control key to the left like this and have the leading space, and actually let's do it. It will not look as good on the screen because if you look at the 7 Plus, looks good because that's the way that we design. But on the 7, it's terrible. It's not that noticeable, but it is not in the center now. And even if you have the SE, let's have the SE over here, it's, gosh, right? It's way to the right because it only has that constraint to the left of the image. We don't want that, right? So let's hold Command Z to delete that little constraint. What we want to do is the Exposition position horizontally like this. We want this image always centered horizontally, just like what we did for the Y position vertically. We say that this label is always centered vertically, right? Centered vertically. This image is what? This image is centered horizontally. So what we do is hold the control key from this image to the top and a little bit to the left or right like this, okay? And then release it. And then you see that there's a little center horizontally in container. And we click into that. And then you see on the SE is still in the center, in the 7 is still in the center, and the plus still there. Pretty good, right? Okay, now the Y position. What is the Y position? The Y position in this case, we just have to have the space from the top of the view to the space of the top of the image, right? Or the distance from the top of the view to the top of the image. So I hold the control key, drag it to the top like this, and we release. Vertical spacing to top layout guide. Like that. And now it looks over here, it looks good, and looks good. Right? Now, we still need other informations like the width and the height. Like the width and height. So we will control and drag from this image to itself. Just like the way that we set the height for the Inspire Me button. Release that, and we have the width and the height. So what you can do is we click into the width, and then we do it again, and we have the height. Right? So if I click over here, like that, and then I will do it again like this, and height. Right? You can do that absolutely. It works. And you see that over the size inspector, you have a bunch of constraints over here, the constraints, and then you have the width and the height. You see this? The layout. That works. But actually, that is kind of like we have to do it twice. So in Xcode, what you can do is you set it once. So I will Command Z and Command Z again to delete these two constraints that we just did for the width and height. So what you can do is hold the control key, release it from this image and release it. And then hold the shift key, and then click the width. You see that it ticks the width, right? It marks the width. And then tick the height. It marks the height, but still you have to hold the shift key, okay? And then add the constraint. Add it like that, and voila. You see that? Nicely. All right. Now, lastly, this Steve Jobs label. The Steve Jobs label. So what we can do is the Exposition. What is that? Yeah, the Exposition, we want it horizontally centered with this view. Or we can do horizontally with this view over here. Because remember that auto layout is all about giving 4 pieces of information, X, Y, width, and height. Right? But it has to anchor into some view that is fixed or wellly informative or non-ambiguous view. So for example, this root view here is a non-ambiguous. The screen always knows to shrink down or grows up. But now this image right here, this Steve Jobs thumbnail over here, it is now anchored against the root view. So it is good, and we can use that as the anchor for another view for this label. Let me say that again, right? So for the example of the image, this label, and this button, the anchor of these views is the root view, and that's good. But now, this Steve Jobs label, we always want it to be kind of like relative position to this image, right? So, because this image is already constrained against the root view. So it is good now. It is good now. It is a non-ambiguous view. So we can use this image as the anchor for this label. You see that? See the point here? Very important. You have to use that a lot. I know that there's a lot that we cover here. That's why I give you a lot of projects here so we can practice with it. I hope that you enjoy this, and I do enjoy that. So please just be patient with the journey, I will guess. Okay, so now I will hold the control key from the Steve Jobs here. The Exposition is horizontally centered along with this view, right? So I hold control key, Steve Jobs like that, and center horizontally. You see this? Now, you may ask, can I do this label centered horizontally to the root view? Right? Can you do the label centered horizontally to the root view? Absolutely, you can do that. Like, you are able to do that. And that is a correct way to do it. Right? So in auto layout, they said it is more of like an art than a science. It is still the science, but an art in a way that you have many ways to do that. It is still right. Whatever it is, you can have later on when you do your code change, whatever the set of constraints that you have. I don't care. It just works. If it works, then it works, right? So now, that is the X. The Y position is how much space to the top, right? So, but we anchored again this image. So hold Control key, release it to the top, and vertical spacing. Okay, now the width and the height. Remember that I told you that views has intrinsic content size, right? The same goes for the label. The label has intrinsic content size, so it knows the width and height in this case, right? And that is good. Okay, now if you preview this guy, it looks good on the Plus, it looks good on the 7, and it looks good on the SE. Next up, in order for you to practice what we just learned, let's click into the Foodie app like this, another project that we have for you in this workshop. And what we do is, I will ask you to do auto layout for this guy. For this guy, very simple design, pretty much like the way that we did in the last project, but you have to apply auto layout on this guy, right? So if I preview this, let's preview that guy over here. The 7 looks good because we designed on the 7 this time. The Plus, let's see the Plus. Okay, now the Plus, for some reason, the image is still there because the intrinsic content size. But the label, the button, and all these things shrinks down. Or it's still there, but the space, we have much more iPhone space now, right? Or if we do it on the SE, let's see the SE. It's too big. We don't see the button anymore. Don't see that? Okay. So now, what we have to do is do auto layout for this guy. So do it now and come back with me and we'll do it together. But practice. Give it like at least a well 15 minutes of thought. So do it now and I see you in just a moment. Okay, did you do it? Did you do it? Here we go. This is how I'm going to do it. And the way that I'm doing it this time, I'm going to show you another way of doing auto layout this time. Okay? Is that cool with you? Okay, now let's do the image first because this is pretty easy to do. Or you know what? Let's do this button first. So this button, we want to have X, Y, width, and height. X, Y, width, and height, right? So the X position is how much space to the leading, right? And the Y position is to the bottom. The width is we set another constraint over here so that the width is also grows as the view grows or shrinks. And the height will set the height constraint, just like the Inspire Me button. Remember that? But now, we can hold Control key and drag it, something like that. But I actually don't want to have that because I want to show you another way of doing this. So I will select the button. And then, now, again, I told you in just like a few minutes ago, auto layout, you can use any tools. You can apply any constraints. Whatever the way that it works, as you preview on this here, it still works. Then it works. It doesn't matter if you have like 10 different constraints that mean or you do programmatically, you can do programmatically, it doesn't matter. What matters is it works. It doesn't matter if you programmatically add the auto layout constraints and it's like people think that is professional. Who cares? What matters is you get the job done. And the faster you get the job done and the more stable the job is done, then it's good. Right? So I will select this button and then over this menu, I'm going to click the pin button over here. This little button to the second here. This is what we're calling the pin button or it can call add new constraints, right? So if you look at the little top left area over here, we can have, you see, this little square in the middle. This square represents the view that we select. And then we have 4 boxes to the left, right, bottom, top, left, right, and bottom. This represents the space, or actually it represents the neighbor view. And if you click over here, you'll see that it checks the recipe method text view, right? Checks over here. So that if you add the constraint right now, it will be relative to this text view. And then this is little 12 over here. You see it is the view, right? The current distance is 12. So this is little view over here. And then the neighbor to the right here is also, you see, click over here, the view. And then click over here at the bottom is the bottom layout guide, which is the layout of the view, the root view. Right, you see that? So now what we want to do is have the exposition, right? Little space to the left. So I will click this little beam over here, click that to enable that constraint. And then the bottom. So the bottom, so that we have the Y position. You see this? And then the width. The width is, we add the nut constraint to the right. I see this? Add the constraint to the right. And now I can add the 3 constraints. Add that. Boom. It works just as nicely. You see this? Right? But now, before I'm going to redo that because it just shrinks down my size. So Command Z and Command Z again. And then I'm going to do that again. So left, right, and bottom, like that. Right? But now, along with that, you can also do the height immediately. You see this height? Click the height. Don't click the width because we don't want to give it a 351 width, like a fixed width. We don't want that to happen, right? And see that? Pretty nice. And the 4 constraints. Boom. Okay. You see this? Yeah. Now the reason why we don't have this button over here is because we still haven't do auto layout for these 3 guys. So let's do that. Now, this guy, let's do this little text view. Should we? Well, I think the image is easier to do because this image, we can pin that to the edges of the screen. So let's do that. Pin menu. And then we can do the exposition is, yeah, how much space still left. Right, we can do that this way. The Y position is, we can do the top space over here. Click the top. The width, where's the width? The width, we want to do what? Yeah, how much you want. We want the width of this image exactly, potential. We want the width of this image exactly like the width of this root view. That's why we also give it the pin to the right too. So if it is pin to the left and pin to the right, then as it shrinks and grows the view, then the image also shrinks and grows to left and right. That's why the width is also changed. You see my point here? So we have the X, the top, and the width. Now, where's the height? Should we do the height constraint? Well, we shouldn't. Why is that? The reason why is maybe the height is, we want it to be a square. But for the 7, the ratio is 1:1, right? It is, the width is 375 and the height is 375. But now if I click the height over here, and if it is an SC, the width will be smaller and the height will also should be smaller because the height is 1:1 ratio to the width. So do you see the hint I just gave you? The ratio. Because now we know that the width is anchored against the width of the view. So we have that good. Now we just have to maintain the aspect ratio of the image. And yes, you can do that. Click into the aspect ratio box over here and we add the 4 constraint. Add that guy. Boom. Nicely done. And you see that it looks good on all devices. Isn't it beautiful? Cool. Now, another thing I want you to notice with and especially what just happened, especially with an image, is that for an image, if in the attribute inspector here, the image view, if you in the view content mode here, if you choose the scale to fill, it will feels like that. If you choose the aspect fit, it will fit the image because it is like there's a little a rectangle over here, right? So here I choose the aspect fill, so it fills out the whole image, but it still maintains the aspect ratio so that it is not distorted. So it is a very good way to do that. Cool. All right. So next, let's do this little label. I'm going to do it quite fast over here. Exposition, 12 point to the left. I check the pin menu over here. The Y position, because this image is good now, we can use that as an anchor, right? If you click into this little drop down here, you see that it is recipe image view. So we can use that as the anchor. Click to the top. The width, where is the width? We anchored it to the left and the right. So another over here, right? And because it is a label, it has the height already. So add the constraint. Looks beautiful. See this? Okay. Let us test it furthermore to make sure if it works on the 7 plus. Okay. So let's do this text view over here. I'm going to anchor Exposition, 12 to the left, Y position, 4 to the top of this label. What is that? The width is 12 also to the right, anchored like that. And the height, I will not do that at a specific point like this. I'm going to anchor again this button, so that anchored against the button, so that it always have like how much space is this left. It will give it the text view the space left from all of these constraints. See that? And add the 4 constraints, and boom, you see this? The 7 plus, it works now. Beautiful, isn't it nice? Awesome. All right, so that is our little recipe app. Well done. Okay, now, hey, I think it's really good job that you just did. So if you have any questions, feel free to post it right below the video in the comment section, because this is hard. I have to be honest with you that this is so hard, and it's hard to do this. Now, if you look at this little button over here to the left here, now this app right here, I designed it to be only in vertical space only. We want to use in portrait mode only. But if you click this little button here, it is in landscape, and it will not look as nicely. It is because we need to use another tool. It's called size classes, or I believe in F7 is called very trait, like device trait. It's very simple to do, but we'll cover that in another workshop. Okay, so now let's practice auto layout in another app. All right, let's move on into our last project in this auto layout workshop, and that is this little table view app. Table view is everywhere, you see it everywhere. So if you look at this guy, if I run this app right now on a 7 plus, and notice that I built the UI in storyboard in 7, but it's kind of hard to see. So I'm going to run this guy on a simulator for the plus, okay, and you see it much better. And here it is. If you look at this guy, I intentionally put the background color for the image, the label, and the label over here. And you see that each of the cell, if you know about table view, then you can continue with this guy. So if you look at this, the table view here, right? The table view here, because it is the 7 plus, that's why the space is much bigger than the 7. And then you see that this guy on the text is like way to the left. It doesn't take advantage of the other space they has, right? And then if you look at this, all right, so this text over here, the little space from the Apple Watch, and then this featuring revolutionary new technologies and all those things is that much. But then the iPhone and then this guy, right, it is much bigger, the space. We don't want that to happen. And even if, let me scroll down, here we go, the airport extreme over here, it is that big, the space, we don't want to have that, right? So all these products, I believe, like a lot of them haven't been updated, at least for this app. So, okay, so now let's do auto layout for this guy. And because for the tail view, it is rendered dynamically depend on the content of it. So we are going to run it on the 7 to test it. So we cannot preview it, at least, because it has something to do with code too. So now let's do the image view. Now pay attention, in this case, we don't have a root view anymore, the root view like in the controller. But each of the cell here, if you look at the document outline, you have the product cells. Each of the product cells here, it has a content view. And the content view is also kind of like the root view. It also can be our anchored. So we can use that content view as the anchor. You see that? So now I'm going to use this image. Let's auto layout this guy. Where's the logic? Well, the logic here, X, Y, width, and height. So the X position, we want to have left space. The Y position, we want to have the top. The width and height, we want it to be always that much space, some pixel by pixel, or in this case, point by point. So here, click the image, click into the pin menu. I'm going to have uncheck the constraint margins like that, and then A to the top for the Y, A to the left for the width, for the X, right? And then I'm going to maintain the width and height, because in this case we want to have the image like that. Good. And then I'll add the for constraint like this. Cool. So now if you run the app, it will look pretty much just like that. Nothing changes because this image has the intrinsic content size just like this, right? Okay, so it looks good. Now what we want to do next is this label. So this label over here, I want to have the X position, X, Y, width, and height. X position is how much space to the left of the image. In this case, let's use the control here, over here, horizontal spacing, like that. Now, next thing, the Y position. So here, we will use how much space to the top of the contents view, right? So the content view. Now, it will be kind of hard to drag it to like this. It can be mistake, right? So what you can do is drag from, here's another trick that I want to show you. You can use that a lot of cases, is that I'll hold Control key from this label, and it will drag it to the content view like this, because we know that we want to have the content view, right? Release that, and you have a lot of things over here, right? A lot of options over here, but we want to have the top space to the container margin. Click over there, and it's good now, right? Now, what is the width? The width, we want to hold the Control key to the right of the content view and release shading space, right? Okay, I think it's good now. Let me actually change this guy into like this purple color so that I make sure that there's no mistake. So now let's run the app and see how it looks like. Let's run it. Okay, so now, yeah, it looks pretty good, right? We have the left and right. Yeah, it's pretty good. I like it. Okay, now, next thing, let's do the last one, the label over here. So because we can now, let's use the pin menu. We want to have A to the left. Now notice, can you guess what is the left over here that we pin it against? Yeah, we pin it against the image view, right? So it is the nearest neighbor, that's why. And then to the top, I'm going to use the top to be 8 points over here. We can change that. And then to the right, so that we have, so the left is the X. The top here, where is it against? To the label. The right is the width, right? And how about the height? The height, I want to be against, I don't want to have a specific height, because now if you know about the cell in table, it can shrinks and grows. It can shrinks and grows. So I want to have vertical space of 8 points to the bottom of this content view, so that if the layout of the view of the bottom view it grows, then this label also grows. So add the for constraint and voila. Okay, so now let me run the app and see how it looks like. Okay, let's see that. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so now it takes advantage of the screen, but there's still one little problem though. There's a little problem, a big problem actually, is number one, if you look at this Apple Watch thing, it looks great because the text is well positioned, but the iPhone, or if you look at, if you scroll down and down, the AirPod Extreme, we have only like 2 lines of text, right? So it's centered like that. But what we actually want is, if the text is too small, we want to shrink down the cells, right? Or if you look at the Mac Pro over here, I don't know if at the time of the recording, the Mac Pro will get updated, but at this time it is not. So at this time they have the iMac Pro. So now this Mac Pro, it has too much text. You see that? It optimized for performance. And then inside and, so it cuts out inside and it cuts out the out, because it should have another line. Does it make sense? So it should like grows the cell. So in the AirPod Extreme or the iLife case here, it should shrink, and then this little Mac Pro, it should grow the cell, right? Let me find another example. Yeah, pretty much I think. Oh, okay. Apple Pay. So your devices, it still miss the devices, right? So now what we want to do this, we have to do it in code. So what happened is we tell the tail view that we need to tell the tail view a lot of information. So what we can do is in the Apple, in the controllers group over here, and then you see the Apple product table view controller, which is the controller for the main.storyboard, like this. And then click into Apple product tail view controller. And then in the view.load method, I'm going to write in some code. So the first thing we tell the table view is that, hey, I want your table view dot row height to be equals to UI table view automatic dimension. Let me make it larger for you. Larger, like this, right? So what it says is that, hey, I just apply auto layout constraint on your prototype cell. Now, I want you to shrink or grow the height of the row, which is the cell, according to the content and the constraints that I give you in auto layout, right? This applies for either you do auto layout in code or in format language, or that is in code, right? Or you do it in storyboard, whatever it is, you still need this. And then now tail view will tell us though that you need to give me a hint. So hey, tail view, I'm going to give you a hint that your estimated row height, estimated row height will be some number. You can give it any number here, but why don't we give it tail view dot row height? Now by default, this tail view dot row height will be the row height from the first prototype cell of your storyboard. So we give it a hint of some number, of some CG point over here. CG float, I'm sorry. You see that? So now let's run the app once again and see how it looks like. So again, we tell us tail view that shrinks the height automatically. And now it looks good. iPhone, good. See that? It shrinks down the iPhone. And then if you look at the Mac Pro, it grows out the cell. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, looks nice. Okay, now let's go over here. I'm going to select all these labels and images over here. Let's change it, the background to default so that it looks cool, right? Here we go. All right, so go over here and yeah, cool. Now, and there's a problem though. And that problem is if you click into, like, for example, let me show you the Mac Mini, for example, right? So you see this guy, the image over here, it's supposed to take the full width or almost the full width of the view of the cell, but it is not very well. Okay, so we have a crash because I know why it is that we don't have permission to use the camera, because the way we set up here, click here, we have the camera, but that is not what we want to do here. But here you see this, it is not in center because the image here, if you click over here, let me give this image a background of this bluish, and then this text view, a background color of purple, this text. Okay, now let's run the app and see how it looks like. Here we go. And now if I click into MacBook Pro, and you see that it is like still have this space, the text view too. So what I would challenge you to do in this last code challenge is to apply auto layout constraints for the image and these labels. So I hope that you will spend time to do that. If you need instructions and example on how to do that, check out the complete project that you download in the Science Inspector. I will put in all the constraints here for you. Right? You see all the constraints could be there. Just like if you click over here, and you'll have all the constraints set up like that. Alright my friend, I hope that you enjoyed this training on auto layout. I know that it is kind of hard for you because I jam in a lot of training in this course, in this training, and it's a lot, I admit it, because I want to add so much values for you. And I know when I got started, auto layout is really hard, and it got me months and months in order to figure it out. And I tried to take on this topic in multiple directions so that maybe this way it will not hit you, but the other way it will make sense for you. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you do, can you do me 2 favors? Number 1, can you subscribe to this channel so that every week I can continue to deliver for you free trainings on the topic of iOS development, Android development, web development, anything that you want to learn, and you can ask me any questions below this video too. So subscribe. And number 2, what I would love to do for you is I have a video training series all for free on the topic of how to build real-world apps like Facebook, like Instagram, and Nike e-commerce store app. All of those amazing apps, I would love to teach you how to do that too. So if you love to do that, you would love to get that training series all for free, just scroll below this page and click the description on this link on the description, and you can download that all for free. If you already downloaded the start project for this, maybe you already got that, but you haven't, do it now, and we'd love to give you those 3 training video series all for free. Until then, my friend, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, go out there every single day of your life, learn new things, craft your ideas, and contribute to the world.